what's up you guys? Welcome to my channel. My name is Kylie if you're new, and today, oh man, today is my last video in my Halloween franchise series. Just recently on Wednesday, I completed my series on A Nightmare on Elm Street, responding to your comments from that series. Today I will be responding to your comments from my Halloween series. I will also be announcing to you guys which franchises I am covering next, but that won't be until the end of the video. So definitely stick around if you want to hear what my next two series are. Also today I am wearing my Halloween night merch, just felt fitting. And lastly, before I get into it, I did put a video on my vlog channel earlier this week just talking about all the stuff I did in my last week of October. Check that out if you're so inclined. My vlog channel will be linked down below. But now to respond to your comments from my Halloween series. So I will be starting with Halloween 1978 and then working my way up to Halloween 2018. I am not going to cover the comments on the other videos. I'm only talking about the comments from my reviews. So starting with Halloween 1978, I guess I only have two comments from this video. This person pointed out that Halloween 1978 is in the Library of Congress National Film Preservation Board, and there are only 768 films on that list of millions of movies that have been made. Like, do we realize how impressive that is, how iconic Halloween is? I mean, well, okay, most of you guys do know. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out for anyone that wasn't aware of that. I wasn't, so I found that really cool. This person just pointed out a shot that I failed to mention, and I absolutely should have because it is really iconic. The one where Laurie is next to the closet and the light slowly reveals him standing behind her before stabbing her. Yes, excellent moment. I probably should have mentioned that. But there's not too much about the original that hasn't already been said and done, so I am going to move on to Halloween 2 from 1981. So I guess I didn't point out in that video that it was never John Carpenter's original intention to make Michael and Laurie siblings. So this person was just pointing that out. And apparently he came up with the idea of Myers being Laurie's brother late one night with a 6-pack of beer and a typewriter. I hope that's true. That is iconic. They also pointed out a documentary. I did put it on my watch later list on YouTube, but I haven't been able to watch it yet. Just know I didn't forget. Someone else left this comment. By the way, I'm not gonna like read all these comments word for word, but you can read them in their entirety if you'd like to. I'm just kind of summarizing them. But this person made the comment that Jason and Michael tend to ignore sex and naked women, and it emphasizes their lack of humanity. And that's true. That's a really good point. I've never thought about it like that before, because that's one of our most instinctual and primal urges, and the fact that they lack that definitely highlights their lack of humanity. So thank you for that comment. That was enlightening. In that video, I did mention that I thought that Dick Warlock was a weaker Michael Myers because I just felt that Nick Castle moved a lot more gracefully. And this person said that Carpenter said in an interview that Castle came from a family of dancers and maybe that's why he seems more loose. That is very interesting. I had no idea about that. Thank you for sharing. Just to think of the fact that Nick Castle came from a family of dancers, that Michael Myers is the product of a family of dancers, that's incredible. Okay, moving on to The Season of the Witch. This person pointed out that John Carpenter willingly sort of straying away from the Michael Myers storyline was a bold decision, and I actually agree with that. And I don't think I mentioned this in my video, but it is such a problem that like studios become so trapped in franchises and just like using them as kind of a money-making machine, just as a guarantee of getting money from audiences without really taking the care and the time to actually make good movies. So the fact that Carpenter wanted to get away from the Michael Myers storyline and he wanted to make it more of an anthology style, that was bold, and I wish that would have been continued. I kind of grapple with this because I'm not sure that the loss would be worth the gain. Like, I guess we'll never know. Like, if we lost all of the original sequels, if we lost Halloween 2018, H2O, the Rob Zombie movies, but we had an anthology series of movies from John Carpenter. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I think that now that the franchise has become so oversaturated and there are so many bad movies in it, I think people are warming up more so to the idea of the anthology. And I don't know, it's hard to say because I guess we'll never know. But thank you for bringing that up. This person provided a fun fact that I was not aware of. They said Dick Warlock also played the robot that Chalice killed by punching him in the stomach, and the stuff they used for the orange stuff was frozen orange juice. I was curious about that goop. I thought it was really gross, and frozen orange juice makes a lot of sense. And finally, in my review, one of my fun facts was that Tom Atkins actually caught pneumonia while shooting this movie. And this person said Tom Atkins did not get pneumonia, pneumonia caught Tom Atkins. Fair enough. And this person was just very surprised that this movie was rated higher on Rotten Tomatoes than Halloween 2, and they think that they are in the wrong universe. I agree. Just because, like, despite if you like Halloween 3, we have to be objective about this here. Objectively, it is not a well-made film. The acting is terrible. There's that weird, huge age gap between these two romantic lovers, and that whole romantic subplot has nothing to do with the movie. Super unlikable protagonist. Like, it's just objectively just not a good movie, whereas I think that Halloween 2, like, narratively they do a good job. The acting is good. A lot of the practical effects are good. Pretty well paced. Like, It's just a wonder. It's truly a wonder how Halloween 3 got rated higher than Halloween 2. Okay, moving on to Halloween 4, one of my favorites. So I went on like a mini rant in my review of Halloween 4 because I was like, why would they end it that way? It's a great cliffhanger. It's a great twist ending, but why would they end it that way when they know that they are gonna bring Michael back again? It just didn't make sense to me because then there was really no follow through with that kind of plot. It just really fizzled out in the next movie. And this person kind of agreed with me here. They said if this was the last movie of the series, the ending is great. It basically says you can't stop evil. Which, I don't know, I've thought about this. Like, what if they did end it after Halloween 2? What if they did end it after Halloween 4? Those would have been some really high notes to end on. What if they never made any sequels at all? What if Halloween was just this pristine, untouched movie from 1978? I don't know, we'll never know. This is one of those if you weren't there you couldn't get it type of comments. I rented this film on VHS in 1989, many years before you were on this earth. Lol. You can't have the circa 1988 feel that others have with this film like me. Again, you can't enjoy something as much as I can because I was there. It's an 80s movie. You either lived it or you didn't. I don't need someone policing how much I can enjoy something just because I wasn't alive when it came out. And it's also always like older men trying to gatekeep younger women. And then finally, somebody mentioned something about the ending of the second film and its continuity with this film. And then finally with this video, somebody mentioned something about the ending of the second film and how it plays into the continuity with this film. They said they never understood the explanations of how Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis survived that explosion because Dr. Loomis was standing right next to the gas tanks and Michael got shot in both eyes and was basically a walking fireball, and then, you know, he crashed and fell too. They also mentioned that they don't like the mask. I agree. And of course they also touched upon the cliffhanger and how that would have been a good ending, but the sequel didn't have any follow-up. I don't think I mentioned the continuity of Halloween 2 and how Loomis and Michael survived, but I'm glad you brought that up because yes, it does not make sense that Dr. Loomis would only have like minor burns on one side of his face. He was in a whole ass explosion. With Michael not dying, I can forgive that because he's literally the boogeyman, he can't really die. But Loomis, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. Okay, moving on to Halloween 5, one of my least favorites. So in this first comment, somebody mentioned how ridiculous it was that Jamie now had these psychic powers or like this psychic bond with Michael. I can't remember if I brought that up in my video. I don't think I did though, because I spent so much of that video just talking about like what that movie did wrong. I guess I just didn't include that, but they're absolutely correct. It just didn't really follow the laws of the Halloween universe and it just was kind of out of nowhere. Did not like that. Basically made no sense and they didn't try to explain it. This person said that they agreed with me that taking off the mask was a big mistake, but what they didn't like even more than that was that Michael started crying. And I don't actually remember seeing like a tear or actually seeing him physically cry, but if he did, yes, I agree, that's a terrible choice because we're not supposed to connect with Michael Myers' humanity. He's supposed to be the boogeyman, so why he would like cry and have this connection with Jamie, it does not compute. Especially because he was just trying to kill her. Why would he literally take off his mask and bare his soul, bare his face to her? But other than that, it kind of just seems like everyone else kind of agreed with my statements in that video. Now for the next video that I'm going to talk about, I am not going to talk about the producer's cut of part 6. I'm going to talk about the comments on my video when I was comparing the theatrical and producer's cuts of Halloween 6. So this first comment mentions that the thing that hurts both versions of the movie is how they treated Jamie's character. It doesn't make sense for Michael to kill his whole family, yet rape and impregnate his niece. Yeah, in either version, it doesn't make sense. I mean, plot-wise as a whole, just both versions are a mess, but I didn't mention specifically in my video that specific part of the storyline. I have no idea why Jamie's character would be treated that way. Because Danielle Harris playing Jamie in both 4 and 5 carried both of those movies. Those movies would not have been nearly as good without her. Her talent as, I think she was like 10 or 11 or something when she was filming those, and she outshined literally all of the adults, and so I just feel like it would have been more beneficial to make her a stronger character as well in Halloween 6. And Danielle Harris wanted to play Jamie again in Halloween 6 and like even got emancipated from her parents and all that stuff, and the studio just like didn't comply with her demands and like what she wanted for payment. So that's ridiculous. The movie ended up being a mess, and who knows, I think Danielle Harris is definitely a stronger actress than the girl that ended up playing Jamie, and the movie would have been and just a completely different experience with her in it. So anyways, moving on. This comment I want to highlight because their opinions are very different than mine when it comes to the producer's cut than the theatrical cut. They have several reasons, as you can see, why they like the producer's cut better. Most of the points are just kind of about the plot holes in the movie, and I've mentioned several times that I don't care that the plot was more of a mess in the theatrical cut than the producer's cut, because the producer's cut was still a mess, so like it doesn't really matter at that point. And I just had more fun watching the theatrical cut. But some of the things that they do point out I think are not forgivable from the theatrical cut, such as there being more scenes with Loomis, particularly the ones where he's explaining that he had a stroke and that's why he's moving slower, more soft-spoken and whatever. The part where he explains that he has had plastic surgery and that's why his burns are different. Are they gone in that movie? I don't remember. And then him visiting Jamie at the hospital, and then that's why he's there when Tommy Doyle comes into the hospital. Because in the theatrical cut, it doesn't really make any sense why Loomis is already at the hospital. So good points made. I can totally understand and appreciate why you would like the producer's cut more. I just found it to be weird and not as fun. This next comment is from someone that's surprised that I didn't mention the scene in the producer's cut with the flashing and slashing in the end of Halloween 6. So they said I mentioned the ending but not the surgery room slashing and flashing, which was an awesome ending to all that cult junk. And it shows that Michael's evil goes way beyond the curse and the cult, and so it kind of makes him an unexplained killer again. So that's a very good point. I'm glad that they brought that up. And then someone else actually commented about their theater experience with this movie, and they brought up the same scene as well. So that'll be up on the screen. I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but it sounded like a really fun experience and it's a really good story. So I wish I mentioned that scene, but I'm doing it now. That's all I have from Halloween 6 though, so I am going to move on to the comments from H2O. This is, I think, my shortest video from my Halloween franchise series, and I regret that. I regret not putting more into that video. I just really enjoyed the movie and I didn't have a ton of notes on it at the time. Otherwise it would have been a longer video, but anyways, this person said that this movie should have ended the franchise, and if this had been the end of the franchise, it would have ended on a high note. And they also agreed that humanizing a serial killer just makes him less scary and goes against what a serial killer is. Appreciate that. And again, it's interesting, this game of what if we had ended the series here or there or whatever. I think this would have been an excellent natural ending point to the Halloween franchise. And I say that even knowing that I love Halloween 2018, but the fact that this movie ended, spoilers, with Laurie decapitating Michael, I mean, so climactic, and definitely I think one of my favorite Laurie moments of all time. So sullied by resurrection. But we've talked about this before on my channel, so I'm gonna move on. This person just made a terrible comment. They said that's not Michael who gets decapitated, and then at the bottom of the comment put spoiler. You could have potentially ruined resurrection for somebody by spoiling it like that. And also you have to put the spoiler warning at the top so people know not to click into the comment. That was a shorter video though, so I didn't really get as many comments on it, so let's move to resurrection. So this person agreed that the opening was the best part of the movie. I mentioned that in my video, but they didn't enjoy it at all because they said that in order to kill Laurie off, they had to make her dumb because she was like, I just have to make sure, you know, she pulled off his mask. And they pointed out that she doesn't even know what he looks like. She only saw his face for a split second. And whoever broke into your room wielding a knife is probably Michael Myers. So with this comment, I'm a little bit torn as to whether or not I agree with it. Like, I get the points that you're making, and I think that even if it wasn't Michael Myers, if someone is coming into your room with a knife trying to kill you, it's okay to kill them. But because prior to that she had decapitated someone on accident that wasn't Michael Myers, I think that the mental trauma of that would lead her to needing to be sure that it was him. But like they said, she doesn't know what he looks like. But yeah, no, you know, they're right. I mostly agree with that comment. They also commented a second time and they questioned the previous movie because they said, you're telling me the paramedic was able to survive getting thrown through a car windshield at high speeds, get hit by a car, and then pinned by the car to a tree and still be alive? And even though he couldn't speak, he didn't try to take the mask off? Excellent point. That is why I just ignore resurrection. I'm gonna pretend that it doesn't even exist. Because they're absolutely right. If you couldn't talk and someone's about to decapitate you, just use the, because in the movie he's like stretching out his hand and he's like, just use that hand to take the mask off. Anyways, after this series, I hope I never have to talk about resurrection again. This next comment is just hilarious. They said, I told you, big giant steaming turd of a movie, and they took everything good from H2O and dropped a 2 on it. And also during that video, there was an ambulance that came down my street and like picked up one of my neighbors, and I was like, why is there an ambulance here? And they said I sent the ambulance and the paramedics. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to survive that hot mess of a movie. You looked pained trying to keep it civil. You have much better restraint than I do. Well, thank you. That was a great comment. Okay. This comment brings up up Busta Rhymes. They think that Busta Rhymes is probably the most entertaining part of the movie, but the fact that he bosses Michael around is super out of character and weird. And I failed to mention this in my review, I'm pretty sure. I didn't talk about the fact that Michael gets bossed around. That is so weird. Just such a terrible choice. But in terms of any more comments, basically everyone agreed that this was a terrible movie. I didn't really get much dissent in the comment section. There are 170 comments on my Rob Zombie video, so this should be fun. Okay, I'm just gonna try to pick out the most juicy ones, I guess. So I'm gonna try to highlight a couple of the comments of people that actually enjoyed this movie. And so this person said it was everything that they thought it would be: mindless, trashy carnage backed with good cinematography. And they also made the point that in a lot of ways the Halloween remake was a mirror image of what Rob Zombie grew up watching. And that's a fair point. If the stuff that he listed was what Rob Zombie grew up watching, it makes total sense why he would produce a movie like that. And I guess you wouldn't necessarily see what's wrong with making a movie so unnecessarily vile. This person kind of reiterated one of the points that I made in better wording, I think. So they said the remake really didn't answer any questions, didn't explain how Michael Myers became an unstoppable killer, being impervious to pain. We just get that he's a kid, grew up in a bad environment, dysfunctional family, bullied in school, which made him torture animals, and then he snaps and goes on a killing spree. And that's an excellent point, because I think the whole idea that Rob Zombie had of giving Michael that long drawn out backstory with the entire first act is trying to explain Michael in a way. But in reality, with the way that the plot plays out, we still don't get those questions answered. It still doesn't make any sense. Like, he just grew up in a bad family and then became a serial killer. For what? Like, we don't know. We still don't know. I actually mentioned this briefly in my video because he went after a teenage Lori despite not seeing her for 15 years and not killing her as a baby, because I was like, what's the... I don't get it. So this person mentioned that in terms of entertainment value, this movie is not bad, and I kind of agree with that. They also said that they didn't like how they made Michael a big dude, like if he was Jason. And I hadn't considered that, because in making Michael a giant, I mentioned in my video how I thought that was really not a creative or good choice, but this person mentioned that he resembled Jason, and I agree with that. I mean, I can't believe how I didn't see that before, but Michael was very Jason-esque in Rob Zombie's remake. This comment is from someone that just thinks that Rob Zombie is utter garbage, but I think that what they said was well put together. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to put it on the screen just because I want to highlight this comment. I really liked it. I feel like they worded some of my opinions better than I could have, because I just didn't really want to be this harsh, but I can't say I disagree with these points. This person just simply said all of that and not one mention of Joe Grizzly. The guy that like died on the toilet? Did I need to? This comment is kind of funny because they mentioned that they felt uncomfortable when they saw Danielle Harris's boobs. Because at first they were like, boobs, but then they were immediately like, no wait, that's the little girl from 4 and 5. So yeah, that's interesting, because when it's personal and when we know somebody, we don't want them to be exposed, but if we don't know the woman, it's like, hell yeah, objectify them. Just interesting. This next comment is very simple, but probably one of the most insightful ones that I got on that video. They said he should have made it more about Halloween and not a Rob Zombie movie. If you think about it, Rob should have remade a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that's more his style. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? Why didn't Rob Zombie remake a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie? That has given me some food for thought. Maybe we should start a petition to like get him to do that. I don't know. But that comment just made too much sense. I had to share that. Moving on to the comments from Halloween 2. This comment is just kind of funny. It's from one of my friends actually, and she was just saying the trippy white horse Michael Myers stuff would be an interesting road to explore, but then she immediately backpedals on that and she's like, actually after typing that it still makes zero sense to me, so never mind. That's kind of my thoughts exactly. I talked about this very briefly in the video, but the white horse concept and that kind of psychedelic vibe is kind of cool. I just don't think it has any place in a Halloween movie. If that were being explored in more of like a psychedelic dark comedy perhaps, or something like that, I think it would definitely have its place somewhere, just not in this movie. This one just kind of reiterated what I was saying in the video really well, and this is an interesting point that I think I brought up in my review of the first Rob Zombie movie, but they loved the idea of the original to have Michael, who lived in a relatively sheltered normal life, to for no reason at all get it in his head to murder his teenage sister at the young age of 6. That alone speaks true that yeah, this boy is pure evil. They said quite simply, what is scarier, a silent, stealthy, unhinged man with no rhyme and reason to destroy everything in his path, or a simple serial killer who is a psychologically damaged man who projects his childhood trauma and rage on innocent people? It humanizes him but diminishes what makes Michael a unique slasher icon and pretty much makes him just like any other human serial killer with mental issues. That is facts. This comment made me laugh. They said, "I think you nailed it. My only difference is I liked the film overall and you did not. Other than that, we completely agree." I don't know how that's possible, but I'm happy to hear you say so. And basically all the other comments just were agreeing that this movie was trash, so I'm gonna move on to Halloween 2018. This comment that I'm gonna talk about, I actually pinned to the top of my comment section on that video if you want to read the whole thing, but it's basically like an essay. So I'm just gonna break down a couple different sections of it. But overall, this person didn't really like this movie, and so I just want to highlight some of their points as to why, because I think that they make some really solid points and they're things that I didn't bring up in my video. So they mentioned that there's a lot of forced humor, specifically with the dad, and they insert the humor in tense scenes when he should not be laughing, and he says that it ruins some of the tension and suspense in some of the more intense scenes in the film. But they did say that comedy and horror don't mix, and I completely disagree with that. I agree that I don't really think that comedy has a place in Halloween movies, at least not to the overt extent that it was in Halloween 2018. The dad character was so out of place, and then he died and nobody really missed him. There was also that scene of the cops in the car just like talking about sandwiches. That totally disrupted the pace of the movie. That was so unnecessary. It was supposed to be funny and it just didn't land at all. And then he also mentioned the whole subplot with Dr. Sartain and how that didn't make sense. I did address that in my video, so I'm not going to talk about that now. I am going to move on to the next comment who I am not going to leave this one anonymous because I think it's okay for me to shout them out. It's from a fellow horror creator named Art with Horror, and I actually gave him a shout out in that video too. But he said that he actually got to meet James Jude Courtney at Monsterpalooza Horror Convention 2 years ago, and he attended the panel with the cast, and he actually enlightened me that Nick Castle was only in 2 scenes, when he killed the babysitter and when he was standing in front of the mirror, and everything else was James Jude Courtney, which I didn't know. So thank you for that. That is so cool that you got to go to that convention. Ugh, jealousy is what I feel, but I'm happy for you. So let's move on to the next one. In my video, I had mentioned that I was a little bit nervous about Halloween Kills, although after seeing the little teaser trailers, I'm not really anymore. But back then I was like, oh, I don't know, that this franchise has such a history of producing really good movies and then their sequels are terrible. Example, Halloween H2O and then Resurrection was terrible. Halloween 4 and then 5 and 6 were just a mess. Some people actually like the first Rob Zombie movie and then they hate the second one. So this franchise just has a really bad history. But this person said, "It seems John Carpenter has said nothing but great things about Halloween Kills and I fully trust that man's judgment. I have decided to get my hopes up." I'm feeling really good about Halloween Kills at this moment. It looks like it'll probably be even more intense than Halloween 2018. I don't know, we have to wait almost a year to find out, but that comment did make me happy. That made me feel a little bit better about it. I think this is my last comment that I have to talk about. Oh my god, my Halloween series is almost over. That is so crazy. So they actually shared a lot of the same feelings as the first person that I mentioned, but he also added that he would have loved to see one of the Strode women die. That's an interesting take. I don't think I agree with it, but if I had to choose one of them to die, it would have been Karen. And I don't really know why. Like, she didn't do anything wrong, right? But also, I just have to reiterate that I disagree, because I feel like a lot of this movie was focused on their familial relationships. The relationship between daughter and mother was a very central theme in that movie. I felt like the dynamic of that trio was kind of what was carrying the plot line for majority of the movie, because there was some character development amidst those relationships. So I'm glad that they all survived, and I feel like the writers kind of might have had the same sentiments. They might have been feeling the same thing, but they decided to create a more expendable character to kill off, so they went with the dad. I do think we're probably gonna lose one of them in Halloween Kills. That's just one of my predictions. I think it'll either be Laurie or Karen, but who knows, because in the end of Halloween 2018, the 3 of them came together to kick ass. And so maybe that trio will also carry the next one. I don't know. So that does it. That wraps up my Halloween series. Wow. But now it is time to announce what my next 2 series will be. Drumroll please. Yes, my next 2 series starting on Monday and Wednesday will be The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Child's Play. I know I did toy around with the idea of doing Saw next, but I just think that it's a little bit more of a natural progression to stay in line with like 80s franchises, then work my way up to 90s and then early 2000s. I also got the most requests to do these 2 franchises, so it just felt like the most natural next step. I also kind of think that I'm ready. I think that these next 2 franchises are quite a bit more disturbing than the ones that I just covered. forward. So I think I'm ready for it. I don't know. I think they're just gonna provide some really good reaction videos if nothing else. And I'm excited about that. So I hope that you guys are looking forward to my next 2 series starting next week. If you want to see more content from me though, I do also have a vlog channel, so check that out if you're interested. I did post a video about my last week of October. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, my Instagram, Twitter, Depop, and Letterboxd are all at Kai Johns. On Letterboxd, that's where I talk about movies that I don't intend on reviewing on this channel. Instagram is where I tell you guys what movies I'm watching so you can watch them too, just in case I do a review of them. And Twitter is for my memes and all my unfiltered thoughts, so go crazy, have fun on my Twitter if you feel like it. As always, check out the petitions and the GoFundMe's linked down below. I update those every single week. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye!